before you guys end or before you start.
Okay, we could do that first.
Yeah, you guys go ahead and do that if you need to.
Okay, so we're streaming live. I'm just going to ask if there's a motion to open the meeting for the town of Mamaroneck. Is there a
So
second?
moved. A second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Lorraine, do you want to start your meeting as well? And then we'll move.
Why don't you do your business, then we'll open our meeting.
Okay. Although tonight's meeting, the purpose of tonight's meeting with the Village of Larchmont Board is, of course, to discuss the change in law for the Sanitation Commission. We have one item of business, ministerial business, that we need to attend to, and that is we had set the public hearing for the continued public hearing for our rock removal law originally for our next town board meeting, which is the next week for the 18th. And we know that we are not going to have that information ready for us. So we are changing it. Remind me, Christina, we had to change
December 2nd.
December 2nd. So I wanted to know if we could have a motion, please, to change the public hearing for the rock removal law to December 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I seek a motion to open the Village of Larchmont work session.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Aye.
thank you.
Okay, so welcome to everyone. It's nice to all be together again. We are here in a work session together to discuss the proposed change to the law and the Sanitation Commission to move to curbside pickup. And last time we met, we had a public hearing. We heard from lots of people, and we've continued to receive some comments on it, but we had lots of questions as well. And Steve Altieri is going to present the additional information and a recap of our meeting as well. So it's a little bit of a discussion of the changes again, but also with added information that we requested. And hopefully, we all can talk about it and see what we're all feeling about moving forward or not, and timing as well.
Are you ready for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, hello everybody. Let me get my shared screen up. I'll go there. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Every week I get a little better at this. Okay, so we originally presented information to you on October 6th, and we have put some revisions in there, some that you will remember from the previous meeting, but I will go through that older material briefly. So as the supervisor mentioned, this is a consideration of an amendment to actually the laws of the town and the village as it relates to the setting out of garbage for collection. And in this case, the change would be to require curbside placement of garbage. The proposed amendment would include a provision regarding those residents over the age of 70 that could receive a senior citizen exemption. The other thing that I have been investigating is whether we could give consideration to an exemption based upon disability. Trying to work the criteria on that is a little complicated. I am trying to see if I can find other examples of it. Most of the communities that I've gone up on their websites, the exemption is for senior citizens only, but we'll continue to pursue that. Again, just a reminder how our collection practices work now. The twice a week garbage collection is at the back or side of the home. Everything else is at the curbside: bulk waste, recycling, and organics. We've seen in town and in the village an increasing number of residents that do put their garbage out at the curb, and there are reasons for it. Some just would prefer not having our employees in their backyards. And they've said that, and I don't think, no one takes that personally. It's just a sense of privacy that residents want. Some were not aware of the service. And for some, it's just easier to roll it out depending on how they store it at their home. In Westchester County, there are 27 municipalities that currently have curbside garbage collection, 11 that have back home collection, and 4 that don't provide any sanitation service at all. And at the next slide, I have the listing of the communities. Again, in the town and the village, curbside is the standard for recycling bulk waste and organic waste. And as we talk about a little later, it is a more efficient means of collecting the garbage, and does result in savings to the town and the village through the commission's budget. There is no question that it is a safer workplace, and I'm going to touch upon that in a subsequent slide as well. There was some concern about staffing. It's great to hear that everybody does have a concern about our employees. That is wonderful. The staff reductions that would come as a result of this are not coming through any layoff. It is all through attrition. And that's always a positive way to handle a staff reduction. And then we'll talk a little later about how this sets the stage for us to do some other things in the area of garbage and recycling collection. So this is the list of communities that currently have curbside collection. It is a wide variety of municipalities in Westchester County. So it is a rather comprehensive list, and it includes a bunch of the Hudson River communities, some of the Sound Shore communities, including the city of Rye, which actually just went to curbside garbage collection this past July. And so I think the list is self-explanatory, but it is expansive, and for all the reasons that we're going to talk about. There is flexibility in staffing for curbside garbage collection. We do have times where we have staff shortages, whether it be as a result of injuries, vacations, whatever it might be, or a combination of the two. So with curbside garbage collection, we can move staff around. And I don't remember if you recall, I mentioned that there are times when we will move somebody from one route to the other, and they don't necessarily know that route or haven't been on that route often, if at all. And so what happens is they forget where garbage is in some homes, and it's problematic, and we end up getting skip calls over it. With curbside garbage collection, moving staffing around is very easy because garbage is right out there on the street. As I just mentioned, there are fewer missed collections, so we're more efficient with curbside garbage collection. And the fact that we only need 3 people on a crew with curbside collection. Right now we have 4 on a crew. If we just use the 2020 budget, you will see that we could have saved about $267,000, and I'm going to detail that as well. And here's that detail. When the commissioners met this morning, we worked through an alternative way to present this. And so what I'm showing you now is what the 2020 budget was for. These are the major expenses of the Sanitation Commission. We did not include incidentals like, office supplies, fuel, uniforms. These are the biggest numbers in the commission's budget and represent the costs that have the most variability in them. So what you see in the column is the originally adopted 2020 budget. And then what we did is produce a pro forma that shows what the 2020 budget would have looked like had we instituted curbside garbage collection in this year. And as you can see, the savings are substantial. And we talked about this before. I think the one area that I want to point to is the workers' compensation insurance. We were advised by our carrier that they would offer an additional discount, knowing we were going to change the method of collection. Essentially, you're creating a safer workplace, and they recognize that. They've also indicated a willingness after if this goes forward and we are in the process, in the system for a year, they will come back and reevaluate the comp insurance again. So that's always a great sign. Salaries, I'm going to go back to the top. Salaries, this reflects the reduction of 2 personnel from the commission. The retirement, again, there is a reduction there. The health insurance, this was a substantial reduction as well, based on the fact that the premium now for family coverage is about $28,000. So it's a significant number in our budget. The Social Security, there's a small reduction, as is in the dental insurance. Altogether, a $267,000 savings, or about 9% for just these line items. So I think this is worthy of discussion because curbside collection will produce substantial savings. We talked about a safer workplace for the employees and how our workers' compensation carrier views this. And again, nationally, this is considered one of the most dangerous jobs, 5 most dangerous jobs. Who would have thunk that? But it is. And we talk about the most common injuries in refuse collection. And remember, going to the back door just advances the potential for these types of injuries when you're walking into backyards, up driveways, etc. For that reason, workers' compensation carries one of the highest manual premium rates in New York State. And as I showed in the prior chart, curbside garbage collection would have resulted in a savings of about $70,000 or a 17% reduction in our premium. Again, numbers that are significant. So let's talk about what can happen in the future. At our last meeting, I mentioned to all of you that we did experiment with an automated refuse collection truck. Automated refuse collection trucks are being used in the town of Harrison, town of Greenberg, neighborhoods in the city of White Plains, and Croton on Hudson is about to experiment with 1 or 2. This gives us an even greater safety in the workplace, and it allows us even more flexibility with the staff. And in our experiment in both the village and in the town, we found the trucks worked fabulously. The drivers have to rethink how a route is done because it'll only pick up from one side of the truck, but that's really just going down one side of the street, turning around and coming back down the other. There's an environmental component to all this. All along, we have always looked for ways to reduce the amount of waste that we process as garbage, which is about 40% of our total total collection services. We collect about 20,000 tons of material each year and recycle over 60% of that. We are generally in the top 5 or 8 communities in Westchester County for recycling. With curbside recycling, we can start to look at other programs. We could start to look at other schedules. Are there different schedules we could look at for the collection of recycling? Do we want to consider the collection of food waste? Curbside collection allows us that kind of flexibility moving forward. This is a change, and I understand why people are concerned about it, and it is a challenge. I think we are able to address the senior citizen concerns with an exemption if they are unable to bring their garbage to the curb. We will look at whether or not this is feasible for those with disabilities as well. And the commission also has we've started to sell a variety of different size cans, all on wheels, that will make moving the garbage that much easier up your driveway. And I'm going to finish with some photographs that we took this morning of the types of cans. We're selling actually 4 different sizes. We are currently out of stock on one of the sizes. So we're selling a 30, a 48, a 64, and a 96 gallon. What you see on my right is the blue can, which is a 48 gallon can. The photo on the left, the can on the right is a 64-gallon can, and the one on the left is a 96-gallon can. These cans are incredibly durable, and they are actually quite animal-proof. I have been using this type of a can for about 2.5 years. I did have problems with raccoons at my home. This toter can is very bottom heavy, so it's not easy to open. It's not easy to tip over at all. Even in a windstorm, these cans hardly move. So, and as we start to look at alternatives, there are other size cans that we can look at as well. But again, this makes it much easier. It's become very popular. The commission budget now has a separate line item for just the product that we're selling. And this past year, we sold just shy of $15,000 worth of product, and people keep coming to see it. And that's it. So thank you. And if you need for me to go back to any of the slides, please let me know.
Now everyone should unmute themselves.
May I ask sort of a series of questions about the curbside, the one-arm bandit trucks, for lack of a better word for me to describe them? First of all, does that affect the way people park on the street?
No, I mean, for the driver, the arm that collects the garbage on the truck we experimented with went out about 10 feet. The preference is to get closer to the can, Sabrina, but you know, if cars were parked immediately on either side of a driveway, it could be a problem, but generally parked cars would not be a problem. Remember, in both the town and the village, you don't have lots of cars parked on the street, even during the day, in the residential section. So my short answer would be no, I don't see that as a major problem.
Steve, actually, Sabrina's question struck a chord with me. When I put out, for example, whether it's regular trash collection or my recycling on a Wednesday, just on the berm next to my driveway, usually put that stuff out the evening before. Often in the morning, there are cars parked right in front of my receptacles. And I assume when the trash collectors come around, they spot the stuff behind the cars and grab them. But if you're using the automated truck, how would that work? Would they have to be moving the cans over?
Well, Malcolm, are you using cans or are you using the green bins we used to sell?
Well, for the recycling stuff, I use our own bins that are similar to the bins you used to sell. And for our trash pickup, it's one of the large wheeled bins that I purchased at Maxwell Avenue.
So for the recycling, if we moved to the automated trucks, we likely would require everyone to go to a can, and the two boards could decide whether we give them away.
It's not the receptacle I'm asking about.
The location of the receptacle.
Sabrina's question about cars parked sometime in the morning, blocking the trucks from picking up automatically those pails.
It's conceivable that a driver might have to get out of the truck and move a can. I can't say it's impossible, but it's possible.
Okay.
Steve, what was the feedback from the driver on the test routes that they did? Did they have were there a lot of issues, or were,
No, we had, most everybody now is used to video games and using a joystick. Well, that's essentially what this is a joystick. So the two drivers we used for the truck were thrilled with the truck because, first of all, when it rains, they're dry. When it snows and it's cold, they're warm, except if they have to get out to get Malcolm's cans. But,
don't blame me. It's the guys parking.
Yeah, that's right. So the answer was yes. The trucks are easy to maneuver. And the truck we actually had was a 31-yard truck. It was a very large truck. It's not typical of a truck we would purchase for the commission. So we would probably look at something in a 20 to 25 yard truck.
May
The
I
other
ask
point about
one,
automated trucks is that the size of the routes would get bigger because these trucks are capable right now of picking up anywhere from 600 to 650 houses on a route, where right now we're picking up between 400 and 450. I'm sorry, Sabrina, I interrupted.
sorry, I thought you had finished. One last question on this subject from me, and that is, food waste is generally in smaller bins. Would we all switch to larger bins, or can the truck handle the smaller bins?
No, the food waste trucks, irregardless of, well, let me step back. Whatever we do, and the municipalities that are using the automated trucks, you would still need a diverse fleet. You would still need some rear load trucks. So for instance, we can't pick up a mattress with an automated truck. We can't pick up furniture. So you would still maintain rear load trucks, and that's what you would pick up the food waste with. I think when we've considered food waste collection, if we were to go that route, we would do it on a registration basis, similarly the way Village of Scarsdale is doing it. That seems to work. And the truck would just go to each of those locations every week to pick up whatever food waste is there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the presentation tonight, or anything else that's been, lingering in your mind about the situation?
Just out of curiosity, you showed us what communities do curbside. Did you have a list of what still have the back door?
Ones that aren't on that list.
Same story.
What? I have the list of the back door, but I did not make.
I realized every community.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, how long do we anticipate the state of emergency going when we're doing curbside pickup anyway now?
So we had that conversation earlier today, and clearly where we may have had dreams of switching back in the next 2 months. I think now we're really looking at 4 months minimum, I would say. I mean, to guess 6 months, maybe.
Who knows?
So
I mean, one would think April at the earliest.
it's a timing thing I'm trying to figure out. We're in the state of emergency anyway, and we're doing curbside. When do we think the food scrap collection would start so we could tie curbside with food scrap, since we're in the state of emergency anyway?
And I mentioned that today at the meeting also, that it seemed to me that the sense of the town board was, and there was an interest in seeing if we could move in the direction to do these two changes together, so that it would be an added benefit and increase in service to provide the food waste pickup as well as the curbside. So we started talking about that this morning, but I don't have a definitive time. But Steve, do you want to address that at all? What it would take if we were to go that route?
Well, we will move likely in January, if not sooner, into the county has entered into a contract with Suburban Carting for the disposal of food waste. And so subject to the final review of that contract, more than likely we will sign that contract and move into the disposal of food waste at the Suburban site in the village of Mamaroneck. For now, we would transport it from Maxwell Avenue to Suburban Carting, and they've offered different prices. So when you see the details of the commission budget, you'll see we have reduced our fees for disposal of food waste. In terms of collection, it really, you do have to sort of marry a couple of things together to make that decision. How would we collect the food waste? How often would we collect it? I'm assuming it would be once a week. Does that mean we need to change the manner in which we collect recycling? I think you have to marry a couple of things together before you jump into the collection of food waste. I think a couple of things have to go hand in hand, because it does go to the issue of the staffing, the trucks we use. Well, not so much the trucks, but the staffing is the most important of the issues.
Staffing, scheduling, and the trucks, Steve, as far as leakage is concerned, we would have to make some modifications to any trucks that get used for that purpose.
Right, that's right. What the mayor's referring to is, in the county agreement, we are required to make every effort to prevent the liquid from spilling out of the truck. And one way is to replace the seals on the truck. The other is to construct a receptacle underneath the truck to capture the liquid. The latter is the most efficient, but is also the most expensive. At the town shop, we're going to price that out just to see what it looks like. For now, to just to haul it from Maxwell Avenue to suburban carting in Mamaroneck, we have, I don't know, maybe some of you have seen it. We have a pickup truck with a big yellow dumpster on it, and that's the truck we would use to move the food waste, and that can't leak because it's a solid bottom dumpster. Scheduling, again, as the mayor said, we'd have to look at how we schedule this with every other collection, and then staffing, depending on how we do these collections, the number of people we would need.
Steve, sorry, Jane, go ahead.
A lot of, more than I thought, are very unhappy about this change. And so I feel it would ameliorate it a little bit, since we're in the emergency situation anyway, and we are actually doing curbside for the foreseeable future. If we could marry the two together in some way, so that it wasn't, we're giving you something and taking something. And also, my big bugaboo is still the handicap thing.
Yeah, but Jane, are you suggesting we would look to start food waste collection while we're in the state of emergency doing curbside?
No. I'm saying I don't know, when we come out of emergency and if we go to curbside and we did food waste pickup, or say this is coming in the next month or so, it's sort of like you're giving them an additional service, not just taking one away.
Or you could just be reducing costs. I mean, there's that as well.
But on someone's tax bill, it's not a huge item, or so I've seen from the breakouts that we've always gotten. And I take my garbage to the curb. I never did otherwise. So to me, what's the big deal? But it does seem that there are a lot of people that are very upset about this. So I'm thinking, take something away and give them something. That's all.
I mean, I feel like we actually got a lot of supportive emails as well as the, negative feedback. And I feel like, if we're reducing costs and we're moving towards other changes, I don't know that we have to do them simultaneously. I think the idea is that we're evaluating sanitation, we're trying to find ways to improve service, and that, it may come in stages, but, this is the first step to making some positive changes and being able to do more than we currently are doing.
Regardless of whether or not we do food waste simultaneously with a permanent commitment to curbside or do food waste separately, we need to see a plan that includes the changes that are necessary and the costs incurred for food waste. That's the piece that's missing in this conversation. So if there are changes to routes, trucks, staffing, all of that, how does this work out? Is this a net savings or a net increase? I don't have a feel for that at all.
Yeah, let me just comment very quickly on that. Oftentimes, everyone is using Scarsdale as the example. I understand that they were the first to go to curbside, but the dynamics are very different between the commission and the village of Scarsdale. They have 6 more people that we don't have, and they just basically enlisted those people into the food waste. Their system of garbage collection is also completely automated. They use a big truck and a little scooter called a Cushman. So their work environment and their circumstances are very different from the town and the village. And so I think what Carol says is very true. The cost for us will be different because we have to evaluate, readapting the equipment and how would we staff it. If we go to a registration system, we've got to buy the software, and we've got to, plan for all of that. So if you all like, that's certainly something I can start to put together.
Well, I think it would be interesting to I don't want to make one reliant on the other, because I think we're looking at a change here to curbside that not only decreases cost, but decreases potential opportunities for injury to workers, and also sets us up for making, a series of changes to service that would be improvements in service, cost savings to service, etc. One of which could be the addition of food waste recycling. So I'd kind of like to make the curbside decision separate, but I wouldn't mind having a sense of everybody's opinion or a temperature of the room here on the idea of going to curbside pickup of food waste, because it's true that we did get many communications in favor of this change, but a lot of them also did mention, and we'd love to have food waste pickup. So
I definitely think it's worth exploring. I don't think they should be tied together, but I definitely would be interested in curbside pickup of the food waste.
I would be interested in seeing Steve's workup of the costs, the route changes, the personnel, the equipment changes that are all needed to consider it. I think that's a starting point. I don't think they should necessarily be tied together. Probably agnostic on that, but couldn't move forward without seeing a full understanding of what's entailed with going to curbside food waste pickup.
I think it was one of the few issues that we actually got a lot of comments on both sides. Usually you only hear everybody who's either for something or everybody's against it. But I do think we'd have to be prepared that there's going to be a lot of very angry people, that there are a lot of people that view this as something special in the community and it's something they expect. And, so it's just something we have to be aware that there's going to be a lot of people, if we go for this, are going to be very upset. And then,
well, yes, there are going to be people who are going to be upset. I don't know, as a percentage of the joint population of the town and the village of Larchmont, we have heard from a small number, and probably almost equal on both sides. Granted, the fours, I think, tie heavily to the concept of eventually getting to food waste pickup. But sometimes, we have to make decisions that are difficult to make.
I agree. I just want us to all be upfront about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Eyes wide open.
What's the drawback of continuing to do curbside pickup until the state of emergency ends and then make a decision if we start to work toward the food waste, if Steve starts to do the due diligence and we have those conversations in the interim?
Well, we will continue to do curbside as long as the emergency is on, regardless of decision or not that we make otherwise, right? I think it all goes mostly to the fact that the commission has to prepare and approve a budget. And so what do we what do we base that budget on? Curbside or not curbside?
There's a big
And
difference
do we,
in the budget,
you know,
and that's why we
I'm
have
sorry,
to. Sorry, there's a big difference in the budget. That's why we wanted to try and make a decision to anticipate the budget for the full year.
yeah,
Well, and
I mean, go ahead.
and just so I understand as well, I think the change in the workers' compensation, as Steve was explaining, you would recognize that fairly quickly, and then they would evaluate again, and it might even go down further upon the second evaluation after this has been in effect for a year. So we would, pretty quickly see the impact, and it may not be something that we want to drag out.
I mean,
Understanding what Steve said
from
correctly.
we're always somehow end up against the timing gun of budgetary concerns. I don't know how we manage to do that all the time. But from that perspective, it might make sense to say, okay, if we wanted, if we have consensus to move towards switching to curbside only, we do so with an understanding that at the end of the year, we'll be ready with the numbers to make a decision about food waste. Otherwise, we have to create a budget based upon something. So is it going to be status quo, and then we make a bunch of amendments mid-year? That's probably a rather difficult thing to do. I mean, we can make amendments to our operating budgets if need be, but it's not great. Steve?
You're going to make amendments if you start food waste pickup. So there's going to be at least one major overhaul.
That's why I'm saying you'd have to kind of think this in terms of fiscal year. 2021 is going to be no let's just say for sake of argument here, no curbside pickup. And that's the budget that gets created and gets approved, with the idea that 2022 becomes a food waste pickup year. And so that budget gets created with the addition back in of the food waste, no matter what those changes might require.
But either way, we anticipate for the first third or quarter of this year, we're going to have curbside pickup anyway because of the pandemic. I mean, we don't know.
We don't know, right?
We certainly anticipate that from what everybody's saying, that at least through the winter and into the spring, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So
But I don't know that we recognize the same savings,
Right, with the work.
if it's not permanent. Like I think that the workers' comp certainly isn't going to go down if it's only for a short period of time. And, we certainly can't not staff as a result of attrition if we think we're going back to backdoor pickup. Like I don't know that the savings are the same. Abby, I think you're muted.
If we're not, Steve, if we're not official, if we don't have this as an official policy, but it's just a state of an emergency, does the workman's comp get adjusted?
Well, there were really two tiers. There was, we would have, if nothing changed, we were going to receive a reduction. What the PERMA agreed to was an additional reduction if we went to curbside, and also there'd be less staff, so the cost goes down. I'd have to go back and give them the metrics for this. If we leave one position down, the commission right now has a budgeted position that's vacant, and we did not fill that position once the town and the village decided to discuss this matter. It was left vacant for the rest of the year. It did cost us a little more overtime and a little more for part-time employees, but that was more than offset by the savings and salary. I'd have to go back, Abby. I can't really give you a good answer right now.
On the food waste program, how many people are engaged in that program at this time? Do we know the percentage?
I don't know. All I can tell you, Bubba, is that we're picking up somewhere between 2,200 and 2,700 pounds a month. I'm sorry, 7 tons a month is basically what we're taking from the depot to suburban carting.
And that's another actually interesting point that Bubba raises, and certainly goes to the analysis that we'd have to look at, is that if, you know, not that many households are interested, yes, we've gotten some emails of people saying they would very much like to see that, but if it's not that widespread and the costs, you know, are substantial, it may not be something that we necessarily want to do. But while we're engaging in that analysis, we could be saving a significant amount of money by just making this decision now, and then do that analysis and see how it shakes out, if it makes sense for us to pursue or not.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
only-
think you can do it based on who's participating now, because
No. I mean, I think you'd have to
No.
do some sort of survey to figure out the level of interest once you understand what the costs are, because if the level of interest doesn't justify the cost, then it may not make sense for us to do.
Just as a comparable, oftentimes, if you use what's going on in the village of Scarsdale, because their population is about equal to the town and the village, their demographics are comparable. They had originally 1,100 people sign up for the program. Scarsdale people, the officials tell us that on average, they are collecting from between 400 and 500 houses every week. So clearly not everyone participates every week.
So Steve,
Whether that would be the same in the town and the village, I don't know. I'm sorry.
assuming then, population-wise, that they have maybe the same number of residential stops as we do?
It's very close. I don't have their number off the top of my head, but
So
it's very,
let's assume it's the same, just for this discussion. But so what would 500 residential stops be as a percentage of the commission? Because I don't have my chart in front of me.
probably something less than 20%.
And,
Right, so-
and Steve, just out of curiosity, in Scarsdale, do they do 2 garbage pickups plus the food waste, or did the food? Okay.
What they do is, Sarah, they have an arrangement where the only way you can get collection is if you register. And as I mentioned earlier, they have about 6 more full-time employees than the commission does. Those employees are then enlisted into the food waste, and they go out with a separate vehicle and they go to each of the homes.
Interesting. So that, I mean, that's another.
The registration you refer to is just for food waste in Scarsdale?
Yes.
Yeah, they have a sign-up list with every name and address on it, and then they made the decision, since the homes are, you know, they're relatively close to each other. If you take the entire area of the village of Scarsdale, they made the decision to make it simpler for them. They go by every home every week, and if there's a barrel, they take it, and obviously if there isn't, they don't. And they were doing that up to just a few months ago, and we started to talk about curbside garbage collection. So that's what they do right now.
That's another interesting factor, in that if our idea is that we're going to replace a day, a garbage pickup day with a food waste day, but we don't have as many residents participating, that may actually cause a bigger outcry if suddenly we stop picking up trash on a day. So
Right,
I
and
think
the
there are a lot
idea-
of factors, a lot of analysis that has to go into
Right.
this.
Yeah, the idea of
Yes.
you know, changing a service that saves 9% of the commission's budget to potentially take that savings and implement curbside pickup of food waste, which is only used by less than, probably, I think, I pulled up my number, less than 15% of the residential homes.
Lorraine, do you
Doesn't
think if,
sound,
excuse me, if we made it public that we would do curbside food waste pickup, do you think more people would start doing curbs?
Yes.
I would imagine that, yes, that if you compare the number of people who are probably doing it now, and, you know, I think I don't know, Steve can answer to this, but I would imagine that over the course of time, it went up, and then it's kind of waned off because the bloom is off the rose of having to drag your food waste down to Maxwell Avenue.
It's a
But
whole-
if we just used Scarsdale with the numbers that Steve just gave us as an example of a community that's you know, potentially as environmentally motivated as we are, you know, that's maybe at best 15% of our residential stops would be putting their food waste out for curbside pickup. And so that's a pretty small number of people receiving a service for which the rest of the community didn't receive the savings from the curbside pickup.
Okay, so we don't know any of this
We
though
don't know
yet.
what the costs are.
No, and I
so-
think, I mean,
Hold on. So there are about 700 people who have purchased the kits from the town for food waste collection. We don't know if there's other people who don't use the kits and they just bring their food waste down to Maxwell Avenue. So we don't really know how many people are availing themselves of this service. There's no question that, you know, there's many people who anecdotally tell us all the time that if it was picked up, they would participate. It's too awful to have to bring it down there themselves. And certainly in the summer, it's less appealing than it is in the winter. It's more difficult to keep that stuff and store it in your home. So I think that, you know, in general, we know that more people would participate. We don't know how many, we don't know what it would be, but in removing food waste from the waste production in the community, you also have some savings from the decrease in weight, because food is really, really heavy garbage. It's mostly water. And when you remove that from the waste stream, you also would see some reduction in your tonnage of if more and more people participated. So, you know, there's a lot of moving factors here. And I think it would be a real outreach program that would have to be done to engage people to find out if, first of all, if they'd be interested and say they'd like to participate, and then we could weigh that, and then keeping them engaged once they're in it as well.
well, and I think that was sort of the point that I was getting at. Like, I would love to have my food waste picked up, and I think it would be a great service. I just think there's so much analysis that has to go into figuring out if that makes sense, that to me, it isn't worth tying it to the curbside issue.
Agreed. There's so much analysis that needs to be done, and an outcome may be some sort of fee for that service to those 20% who want that, rather than having the other 80% who don't subsidizing it. And that's a conversation.
Right, it is. So Scarsdale has 5,800 residential and multifamily stops, just so you know.
Just to Carol, one of the things, if we sign the agreement with the county, we cannot charge for the service.
Thanks, that's helpful. We still need a financial analysis, but that's helpful.
I didn't want to put a pin in the balloon, but that's right. in the
No
agreement.
balloon, no balloon.
You also can't pick up any commercial food waste. It can only be
Right,
residential.
residential
That's-
only.
That's
I mean,
Interesting.
I mean,
Very
you know, the more we talk about it, the more complex it gets. And that doesn't mean that we don't look at it and that we're not motivated to move towards it at all. But there might be other changes that we can make to the service throughout the week, like Nancy brought up. You know, if you recycle your food waste, you have less trash. So does that mean we can, you know, move to once a week trash pickup? And so those potential offsetting expenses might make it really financially feasible, and not really, you know, wouldn't be such a big issue if only 20% of people availed themselves. It might alleviate our trash enough that it works out, and that the savings of a change in service works.
Steve, when we recycle, is it the same amount of guys as a normal garbage pickup? Or is it a smaller team?
No, it's 4 men on the truck. Actually, you know, until we get to a greater majority of the residents using the taller can, the newspaper is the most difficult of the collections, because the guys are bending down, and imagine picking up that bin full of newspaper. It gets pretty heavy. So yeah, we do have 4 men on the truck. That's typically a very long day for them. They'll go well into the afternoon sometimes when we have to do recycling, especially if there's a holiday. Like next week, I would anticipate that it will be a long day for these guys.
Do we want to consider that if we make the change to curbside pickup, that the commission mandates the use of certain containers for trash and recycling, and then, you know, maybe we do a discounted sale blitz,
Like
Yeah.
many,
after which
many
we don't
other,
pick up, after which we don't pick up their trash if it's not in the right bin.
many other communities have done a 1, 2, or 3 phase-in period to get everyone on the same recycling and garbage style bins. And then, of course, we could sell them at a discount, which would be great. But these bins are available online from everywhere. That's where I've gotten mine, from Home Depot. So
Yeah,
it's
we have
not that
discussed,
hard.
right, in the
But the-
commission, we have
The
discussed,
commission ones seem to be,
we
Go
discussed
ahead.
the possibility of offering them at some kind of discount or encourage, having incentives to encourage folks to use these. And we could come up with a date upon which, you have to use them.
Right.
The
With
other
a
reason-
phase-in.
Went to a different kind of truck.
Right.
The other reason you may want to standardize, one, if you go to the automated truck, we had this happen with the experiment. The claw grabbed the truck and the can literally just exploded.
yes,
You need a can more like this toter can that we're using. The other reason is, and we had this happen, if you bought one of those inexpensive cans that appears to have a hook on the front of it, the truck went to pick it up. The can was a bit heavy. The hook fell off. So I would agree that we go to a discounted rate and say you must use this type of can.
you have to use the commission can,
The commission can.
not the cheap version from Home Depot, because that's gonna pop open when we.
So
Yeah.
one other thing I just want to bring up is, our opportunity here in discussing all of this to help people create less trash and less waste, which is one of the main goals in all sustainability
Mhm.
going forward, is to try and encourage people as best we can and help them realize that you don't have to have that much garbage and there's ways to reduce it. Food waste recycling is certainly one of the ways, and regular recycling is too. So, really promoting those and hopefully getting people on board for those reasons, as well as just telling them that, it's fun to have less garbage, hopefully would.
It's also fun to go to the YMCA, but I don't know.
We'll give them a free trip.
Steve, if we did mandate that everyone use these trash cans and we switch to once a week trash pickup, having these cans might help alleviate the additional burden, because the guys aren't going to be picking up 1.5 to 2 times as many heavy bags. They can put these bins can go on the lift, right? And
Correct.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it definitely helps with that as well. Then, then like if the food waste and recycling side lags a little bit and takes a while to pick up, we're not like overburdening the system. So I think the trash can change is probably something we should do, like regardless of any other alteration.
And if you do it, you could decide either charge a discounted rate and like we did with the original recycling bins, if it's sort of a one-timer, we would deliver the cans. And then if somebody wants an extra can, then they could come down to Maxwell Avenue and purchase it at the full price.
Just a point on that. I'm glad we're having this conversation now, because there really shouldn't be an uncovered recycling bin left in the village and the town. It causes so much trash.
So much trash, yeah.
And it gets into our sewers. I see it all the time. I'm constantly picking up these bottles before they go in the storm drains. So great that we're talking about it. The sooner we get away from uncovered recycling bins, both for paper and bottles, the better for the community.
So it seems to me like there is, well, it seems to me that we know we're sticking with curbside for the moment because we're really forced to and recognize it as a safety measure for the employees and probably residents as well. You know, we've been doing it for how long now? 9 months?
Since the beginning of
So
April.
seven
We-
months?
Beginning of April.
Yeah, we changed it over the beginning of April.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we know it can be done. And it seems like there is general interest among everyone to, you know, keep moving forward with it. And general interest in really exploring the variables and costs it would take to collect food waste as well. But that we're not obviously going to get there in a short period of time because it would take some time to figure that out. I feel like based on this conversation that it would be okay to look at our budget, Lorraine, going forward with curbside collection.
I get that sense too, but I think we'd want to know that we were that we were making that change before we lock that in to the budget. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Which
And-
means, of course, that the two boards have to go back to public hearing and hold a vote on the amendment to the law.
Well, do we have to reopen the public hearing to vote on the law?
I don't think so because we
We already
We
had it.
we adjourned it, so unless we intend on taking additional comments, we don't. But we have to vote.
right.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think you adjourned it.
We closed it, didn't we?
You closed it.
That's what I meant.
thought,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
You would
Yeah,
have
I
to.
meant we
would have to
closed the
republish
public hearing.
I thought, yeah.
Don't we have to have the text of a draft law in front of folks in a public hearing?
We did at the public hearing that we already held.
Oh, we did, and there wouldn't be any changes to that. I didn't.
There
know if
there
that
might be
would
because we're considering whether or not we have an exemption for,
Exactly. So
Right.
you have to,
Although-
if you did that,
honestly, Steve, do the exemptions have to be written into the law? I mean, the law really just needs to change from side door, back door to curbside, and then maybe the exemptions can be the policy of the.
And that by Jim and Bill, you might be right. I was thinking the same thing. Do the exemptions have to be part of the law? Really, the law talks about the placement of garbage. It doesn't
Right.
talk about who we will or will not provide a certain service to.
Because yeah, go ahead.
The commission has the right to deny service, but I mean, we've never exercised it. But I think that's a good question, though. I don't think so. I tend to agree with you, but I will check with Jim and Bill, see if they are of one mind on this.
I mean, I seem to remember that the example that we looked at that had the senior citizen exemption, that was not a law. That was although that may have been just completely different circumstance. It was policy of the contractor, I guess.
That was Newcastle.
Yeah.
So let's check that out. That sounds right. And we're also going to check out the possibility of creating exemptions for disabled people.
Right.
Yeah. So if we were to add another exemption or take the exemption that we already have on the draft out, would that be what's considered a substantial change to the draft so that we would have to re-present and open a new public hearing?
We don't have
I'm looking to the clerk for this answer.
we don't have any more of our legal team here.
Mayor, usually it's if the law becomes less restrictive, the notice for the requirement for renoticing is not there, whereas if it becomes more restrictive, then it has to be redrafted and renoticed.
One could argue that taking away an exemption is more restrictive than less and not less.
I would make the case that you have to reset it anyway because you don't have an open meeting. So you have to reset the public hearing. Because right now it's closed. So you can't have a public hearing. You can't have another public hearing without setting it.
True, but we don't need a public hearing to vote on a law that we've already had a public hearing on, because we always close it before we vote.
Right.
Always.
Yeah, I think that makes sense also, unless the attorneys say that these changes would be substantive enough that you would require another public hearing.
Right.
But if we're saying it's going to be a policy and not part of the law, then it doesn't seem substantive.
No, that's why we got to hear from them, I think, because I agree. It's like we're not changing the actual implementation. Okay, so let's check back with them.
Right.
Where are them? Are they when you need them?
Yeah, I know.
All right, I go to school long enough for that.
I mean, we do have a few lawyers on the Zoom here with us.
Just
None are governmental.
My malpractice insurance doesn't cover town of Mamaroneck. It excludes it, actually.
Will we be regrouping at some point soon?
Well, it seems that the two outstanding issues are really is this exemption issue and whether that constitutes the need to have another public hearing. And that's it in this case. So I think once we get that answer, maybe we'll decide, but I'm not sure we need to.
Okay.
Technically, no, because it's we each have to do whatever we need to do individually. We have to pass through, yeah. So of course, so we would want to, since if one of us passes it and one of us doesn't, that's not so good. So we want to at least
Be in sync.
be in sync. Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So
But right now, it seems like we are. So let's get the information.
it does seem like we are. Let's get the information about whether or not the exemptions need to be in the law or not, and if they're removed, is that a change that requires a new hearing?
I hope not.
And then we run from there.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that sounds good. We have continued to get emails in the town of Mamaroneck from new people who are expressing their opinion on the situation. Just to let you know.
We've seen a lot of them.
Yes, you have, but not the new ones. They keep trickling in.
Yeah, I got one. We got one today that was in favor. So they do trickle. Is there anything else at this point while we're all together? I think the other items that we've discussed throughout this, which, food waste pickup and bins and other changes to service are all really, really interesting and are gonna, I think, lead to an improvement.
Yeah.
But would require many hours and lots of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We've probably discussed them to the extent possible without actually having, numbers to kick around and models.
Numbers and operational changes.
Yeah.
All
modeling of different route options and changes to the operations that could accomplish them.
You know,
It's
one of
really
the things that makes-
disappointing that there's such a relatively small percentage of people who actually participate in the food waste program.
Well, it's hard to know the exact number at this point. I mean, in Scarsdale, we know their numbers, but we don't have our numbers exactly. We just know the amounts, the tonnage amount that is collected. But I think that the county moving forward with collecting or accepting food waste has made this conversation possible because of the reduced rate in the food waste tipping fee, which is so much higher when you go through the private haulers. So
Yeah,
made it possible.
I wonder if two things. I wonder that will more municipalities entertain the idea of doing food waste recycling now that there's a more fiscally viable option? And then the other side of that is, what's the capacity of the system that the county has just entered into?
When they did the study of food waste, they were estimating somewhere between 85,000 and 100,000 tons that would be produced in Westchester County and transported.
Steve, can you repeat that, just because there was a little background noise at first?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. When the county did the study, they estimated that the food waste that would be produced would be somewhere between 85,000 and 100,000 tons. And that's just residential food waste. So I am assuming that's the capacity that suburban carting can handle, or let's hope they can.
Yeah, I have no idea. Do you have any sense of like what that would, I don't know what that would mean in terms of how many communities and how many people participating would get us to that. Might we be a victim of our own success?
Yeah.
Well, the secret is to have a place to take it. I think the concern at the county level, because I sit on the Refuse Disposal District Advisory Committee, the concern was their ability to handle it and the ability of finding a contractor that could handle it. And it sounds like they're handling this very much the way they handle the solid waste and the recycling contract. It appears the county will invest in the equipment, like the trailers, and they have to use these special trailers that won't leak. And then the carting company is providing some of the equipment and then obviously all of the labor. But
and you said now we're producing about 7 tons a week?
A month.
A month.
Yeah. This month we produced, it was funny, this month we produced 3,800 pounds, which I guess is a little bit more. And and it was because we had all the pumpkins in the can. So it was pumpkin month.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how many tons per month, or
7
just
tons a month?
I feel like we're getting off the track now.
no? Well, I was just figuring out the annual tonnage for a community this small, and you get up to, you can get up to 85,000 tons. Never mind. It's a big number at the county level.
Yeah, 7 tons a month, you said. 14,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's about 20, 25.
So a little bird tells me that Scarsdale collects between 5 and 6 tons per week. Wow.
Yeah.
Almost 4 times as much as we do.
We can probably get that number. I'm sure we can get that number.
Interesting.
I mean, it is amazing the number of people that come down to Maxwell Avenue just for the food waste. It's a pretty steady number, and it's all week long.
Steve, how many tons of residential trash, if you have this number in your head, residential trash per week do we produce?
Oh, per week?
Yeah, or whatever. If it's per month, we'll divide by 4.
It's about, yeah. Can you talk amongst yourselves for a minute?
Certainly we can.
Sure.
And Alex, the reason I'm asking is I'm just figuring if we could get to the level of Scarsdale and remove 6 tons of weight from our weekly trash and convert it to food waste, that gives us a sense of, you know, where things might go with trash pickup.
Yep.
It's so unfortunate that we can't engage the restaurants in the food waste. There's a bunch of restaurants in Larchmont that I know would be so interested in it. And they, of course, are the largest producers of food waste. But the county is definitely not there yet.
It probably would take them over their limit.
Yeah.
In, you know, within a few months' time. So I can imagine that there certainly would be some restaurants that, as part of their branding, would love to be able to say they recycle their food waste.
We need a good big farm close by to bring it to.
So on a monthly basis, between the town and the commission, we're producing, I have to do the math. We're producing about 5, 7, 20. We're producing about a million pounds of garbage. So that works out to
About 500,000 tons.
Yeah.
Sounds a little high. Huh?
no, hold on. Sorry. Give me a second.
There you go, Justin.
I don't have enough fingers.
500 or 125 a week?
Figure
Yeah.
5. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's 500 a week. 500. Wait, you said a million pounds a month?
Yes.
Yeah, 500, 500
tons a month.
right.
We can't say it again?
So say 600 tons a month of garbage. And that'll vary a little bit. It gets a little heavier in September, and a little heavier in
Steve,
April.
Is that just residential or that's the whole commission?
Everybody. So that's all residential and commercial. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'd have to take the commercial out of that
And that's
consideration,
hard to do,
right?
right.
But still, that's 150 tons a week. So even if you take 6 tons out, it's not
Meaningful.
such a great, it's meaningful. There you go. That's the word. But if you were just looking at residential, it would become more meaningful, I suppose. And then there's the whole question of then what do you do with commercial?
right. When I go to the route spreadsheets, I can give you a much clearer picture of commercial versus, I just don't have the route spreadsheets here.
Yeah. Okay, good. Does anyone have any other questions or comments or et cetera? Nope.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for getting together tonight.
Yeah, this was
Full.
useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to close the work session for the town board?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And does anyone want to make a motion to close the village's work session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
All right, everybody. Good night.
Happy birthday, Christina.
Happy birthday.